This is a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast.
Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to Big Little Small Talk. My name's Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and we're here today with Gunter Glaser, who is a snake catcher. He's the snake catcher of the Darling Downs. Welcome, Gunter.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Have you been out catching snakes today?
Yeah, I was down Wairema. That was an awkward one. They thought it was the tiger snake, and I got there because I never know what it is. People often don't know, and I know that brown snakes can have stripes, and we don't get tiger snakes here. So I was thinking brown snake with stripes. When I got there, it was a spotted python, and so that was interesting because they're usually only found along the escarpment in forest areas. And I just posted one recently I got at East Toowoomba, and I'm wondering whether that's the same scenario. So the one in Wairema, I got that, and it's a duplex, and he was in flat number 2 and the snake was under his mower, and I thought, oh, okay, so I explained everything to him, and I was still surprised to have it out there in a dry area. Because they're a python, they prefer forests. And then the lady next door came home because she saw me car with snake catcher on it, and she was just wondering, oh, what's this? And because they often get browns out there. And so I said, I got a spotted python. I thought, oh, heck, we've got a pet python. She wasn't sure what it was. And she went, just wait, check in the enclosure and see if it's still there. And it was gone. So it was their pet snake. And lucky she got me, because I was just going to take it bush and release it.
Wow, that is the story.
So it's a bit of a relief for me and the owner and the snake, because they can stress out when you release them, especially a pet one that's used to being fed thawed out rats and mice. That's what they feed them when they're a pet, not allowed to feed them live food. And I thought, oh, heck. So that was good. And the person I took it from, they were relieved because it wasn't a dangerous snake, etc. So I thought, oh, heck. So what I often put posts up, which I'll do tonight, is when someone loses their pet snake, contact all the snake catchers, because we're out and about, and tell us where your address, so we can, keep an eye open.
Have a rough idea.
Yeah, because I've relocated 3 carpet pythons now that were all possibly someone's pet. After I posted on my page, they said, oh, that looks like my snake. Well, it's been relocated. I hope it does all right, because it was a pet.
Just going back to that, Gunter, you said about the feeding them rats and the frozen rats and mice. 2 things. One, are they sort of incapable of feeding themselves then when they're released into the wild?
That can be that they're relied on the homeowner. There is a possibility they could get used to it, but they don't know how to catch live food anymore. And also, most snakes, or all of them actually, you can't take them from the wild and make a pet out of them, even though some people do it illegally. You have to buy the snake off a breeder. So it's already used to eating thawed out food.
Can you sense or feel or see a difference between, like, there was nothing about that snake that you thought that felt like it was a pet snake? No,
there's nothing really. When people see a spotted python, they immediately think pet snake. But spotted pythons, even though this is the 4th one which happened to be a pet, in the 10 years I've been in Toowoomba, that's only the 4th one I've caught. They're nocturnal, nighttime hunters, so that's why you don't see them, even though they're common. So it's always exciting to get something different. But that's the silly part. But then again, the one I got today, she just came home from work, the husband was asleep, and they both didn't know it escaped.
Well, I'll just go back to my second question. Yeah. Where does one buy frozen rats and mice to feed your snake?
There are people, they know. They do advertise it. You can go on the website, and everybody that has pet snakes know where to get them from. Right. And people do that as a income. They breed rats and mice, and freeze them, and they, all very hygienic, because that's what they do, and then they sell them on. And
cost of living crisis. I suppose you can do something.
It's really weird, and it's not cheap.
Right.
I don't keep pet snakes. A lot of snake catchers do. Some of them have 10 or 20 snakes as pets, and some of them have dangerous snakes.
The lady who lost the snake today, how did the snake escape?
She found the glass partition was open only about 0.5 mil, only a small amount. So someone's been there, probably the husband because she wasn't home, opened it to feed it and then didn't shut it, wasn't careful enough. You'd get a bit blasé, silly things you do. You should always, what if it was a dangerous snake that got out? You should always shut it and lock it. And sometimes people just forget or get clumsy. And that's what's happened. And she said she can't even understand how it got out of the house because everything seemed to be shut, but maybe it wasn't.
And why do people keep pet snakes, do you think?
Oh, it's just like anything. It's an exciting thing to do, but it's not the same as a cat and a dog. But some snakes make good pets, like all the black snakes become very placid and not too bad. But some people keep taipans as pets. That's okay, I suppose, but you can't really pet them because they can turn, their mood can change, even though they've been bred in captivity. But the other reptiles that make really good pets is goannas. I've seen some videos, blokes with really big fat goannas and carrying them on their shoulder, and they're very intelligent, and they can be like a dog or cat, a goanna. They waddle around and they can be loving and everything. But a snake.
How can you kiss a goanna or stroke it on the couch and stuff?
But then also keeping a reptile, it's more complicated than keeping a cat or dog. Cat or dog, you just so many different things. You can just feed them anything. A reptile, you've got to be careful. If you feed them the wrong stuff, they can get illnesses or stuff like that.
Aren't goannas, when they bite, haven't they got some terrible thing in their jaws or something?
It's a bit like cats. If a cat bites a reptile, it's highly likely it'll die no matter what. If a dog bites a snake, it's only if they bite really hard and break their back that it's not good. But a dog can injure a snake and it can still survive, or with medication. But if a cat bites it, highly likely you can't save it. And
you can't
goannas
save the snake, or you can't save the cat.
Can't save the snake. If the cat bites it, there's something with their teeth too.
Tell me about when dogs get bitten, how you often don't know that the animal has been bitten. What's the kind of signs that your animal might have had a snake bite?
The main thing is it just doesn't look well. You keep an eye on it if it's been with a snake, and you can see the signs pretty close within 10 minutes. But quite often the snake will resist biting and just try to get away, and the dog's chewing on it, biting it and injuring it, and the snake won't bite, it'll still try and get away. The first 10 call-outs I had in this season was about 10 altercations, snake and dog. The snake was injured bad enough so I had to euthanize it, and the dogs all went to the vet, got the tests done, $250 test to make sure it didn't get, and none of them were bitten. But that's just lucky, because most times snake and dog both die. Or you take them to the vet and spend a heap of money and hope they survive.
Yeah. Is it the pale gums and the big pupils? Is that something that...
Probably one of the symptoms. I just don't remember, and I should memorise it, but it's mainly just looking crook. Because if you get bitten by a brown, first of all, browns, you don't feel any pain. So if you have one close to you, just check that if you've got any blood on you, it's gotten you and you didn't know. But it's mainly just the dog looking crook. And the other problem there is the dog can look down, look crook, and then it comes good, and you think, oh, it must have been a dry bite. And that often happens. They suddenly come good after a minute or so and think, oh, that's okay. And then a few minutes later, bang, it's dead. Oh. It's just a reaction that they can come good. So as soon as you think it's bitten, even if you haven't seen it, if the dog's been really close to it and the snake's been rearing up, etc., take to the vet anyway.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, the test's about $250, but at least then you know for sure. If you leave it too long, it's too late.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it true too, often with dogs there's multiple bites, so therefore there's more venom and more likely to be
It can
lethal?
be,
Yeah.
but the first bite should release all of it if the snake's angry enough. But they have trouble getting through the fur because a brown snake fangs are only about 2 to 3 millimetres, and the fur stops that. But it's the nose that comes close to the snake, so they get bitten on the nose or where the fur's really short. But then some people have had them bite on the legs, and you know, if the snake's big enough, you can still get through. But the fur would be a bit of a shield.
Yeah.
But it's the nose that goes close to the snake. Even if the dog doesn't want to injure it, it might just want to play with it, or it's just inquisitive and gets too close.
And what about the other way around? How much have you seen the snakes eating the family pets?
Oh, that'd be pythons. Yeah, I get quite a bit of that. Yeah, the last few was eating guinea pigs. The snake was big enough to swallow a guinea pig, gets in the cage, and then it's got a lump in its belly and can't get out of the cage.
Oh.
You know, the gap in the bars was big enough to get in.
And what do you do in that instance?
Oh, well, they usually call me. I mean, they could kill it illegally, but you know, you can't help that. But I just come, take it out, and if the lump's too big, I keep the snake for a while till it's digested the meal a bit, because with a big lump they have trouble moving, and plus you're going to relocate it to a new area, and they can stress out, or they just got to look around and try and adapt to the new area.
So you put it in a bag and then relocate it then with the...
Yeah.
What's the sort of... You said the guinea pigs. What other sorts of... Do they eat like little dogs and... Or...
No, I've never had dogs. I know for sure some have been cats. Cats, possums, depends on the size of the snake. But they can swallow amazing stuff. You know, the head... I mean, they might only be as big as my wrist, but they can still swallow a chook. It all stretches.
How do they sneak up on a chook to...
Oh, they're just moving around. They can... The chooks, or in aviaries, the birds get all excited, but then the snake just sits there very still, doesn't move, but its neck is in an S shape, like a spring, ready to shoot out. And eventually the birds or the chooks just relax and just go about their normal business. And then if a bird comes close enough, bang.
So it's sort of
instant.
lightning strike.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything like that happening?
Yeah, well, we had one in Kingaroy when we lived there. It wasn't that big. It was only about 2 metres, the snake. And I thought, oh yeah. We had a bird feeder, and all the lorikeets that come and eat out of this bird feeder, it was just hanging off the rafters on the carport. And this thing had got there, and it was just sitting there again, the neck in an S shape. And it sits there for hours in that very still position. And then bang, it just gets one. All the lorikeets fly away, of course, because they're startled, and he can take an hour to swallow it. But while he's doing that, they'll come back and just keep eating, and they just don't realise. And he was there for a few weeks, because once he has a belly full, he'll just either go somewhere else, or he'll just curl up on the rafters and digest the meal. But then one day, because king parrots aren't that common, and they're a lot bigger, and king parrot came and he grabbed that and managed to swallow it. And my wife said, no, he's got to go. You know, because lorikeets are the rat bags of the rat bags of the bird life, because there's so many of them. But the king parrots, they're special because there's not many.
They were endangered, the king parrot.
They could be, yeah. And so the poor king parrot copped it. And you know, out of 100 lorikeets, you might get 2 king parrots. And I think this was a part of a pair too.
Right. So your wife said, no, that's it for that snake, and
so
he had to go.
You can't rescue the parrot, it's too late. They strike out and wrap around it within about a second. The whole thing happens so quick, yet the rest of the snakes still hang on to the rafters. He could be hanging onto the snake, onto the bird or chook, and just flop down, and then hang off the rafters and just swallow it while he's hanging. It looks weird. And then it can take ages to swallow.
So would it be like days for them to digest it? Or?
Yeah, well, The one I got this was a couple of years ago, not long after I moved to Toowoomba. It was in Mount Lofty, Christmas. I think it was either Christmas Day, because people and friends were there having a party. The daughter, 12-year-old daughter, had a pet chook. It laid its first egg.
Oh.
And a really big one got in. It could have been 3.5 metres at least, and it got into the cage and swallowed the chook. Couldn't get out of the cage, of course. It was just one chook, and it was like a soccer ball. The snake was that big, but it was huge. So I took it home, and it took 6 weeks to digest it, because I had a mezzanine floor in my shed at the time in Kingaroy. So anything like that, which I want to keep to let them digest the meal, I just put them up there and leave them. And then when they're ready to come down and digested it enough, they come down and start knocking stuff off my shelf. They crawl along the shelf and things fall off.
Oh, wow.
So, all right, you're ready to go. And then the amount of snake poo up there I had to clean up, just digesting and lots of poo. So
Interesting.
that took
Wow.
6 weeks.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
Wow. I'll just remind the listeners that you're on 102.7 FM. This is Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to Gunter Glaser, who is the Darling Downs snake catcher. Now, before I forget, I have a very good girlfriend who I went to school with, and her name was Glaser, and she wanted to know, my girlfriend Petra, whether you have an amulet above your A, like she does.
We did. Those 2 dots. Yeah, we
They're
did.
gone.
But we don't, yeah.
Got eaten by the snakes.
Yeah, that there. My father's name was Gunter, but you said it Gunter because here the 2 dots above the U, so it's like 2 eyes. So yeah, but my mother thought she'd change that and get rid of the 2 eyes and be Gunter. You know the difference. But the Glaser was, in German you pronounce it Gläser, like drinking glasses.
Right.
That's what it means.
Well, now that we're talking about your family, I did want to ask you about your family. So you came from Germany in 1954, you say, on your father's refugee passport.
That's right, we still got that.
What's a refugee passport?
I was surprised to see it because I got a bit of their paperwork, and you lose a lot of stuff, but I still got this passport and it's got refugee on it. So you just applied to come over. It didn't cost anything, but it's a very overcrowded ship, and came over on that.
What sort of age would you have been then?
5 when we got to Australia, so I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Would have been October 54, I remember that date. That would have been Melbourne.
Do you remember any time on the ship? Or?
Oh, well, one scary thing, I don't know why I survived. The women and children were in one area, and the men were in other cabins. The men had the more luxurious cabins of only 2 or 4 blokes per cabin. The women had huge cabins where there's probably 20 to 50 women in a cabin with all the kids. So they copped pretty bad. And one night I disappeared, and my mother, she was, she was worried. She was going looking for me, and I just wandered up on top deck. I remember those memories a bit. I was on top deck, and the ship's going around the sea, because sometimes that boat was in really rough water and you could see the front of the boat go up like that, and the rough seas, and I was up on deck. I remember it being wet, and I was just wandering on the top deck, and eventually I don't know how kids can do this, like a pigeon, I suppose, went down and found me father and went down in the bed with him. Eventually my mother found me, and imagine how worried she was, an only child. So I wandered it was one end of the ship to the other, and there weren't small ships.
So I somehow washed off the deck and
weird.
Everything.
Yeah, and they even managed to find where to go.
Have you been back to Germany at
No,
all?
my parents were back at least 4 times, and I've often thought of it, and then eventually you couldn't afford it. But they went back several times.
How did they find coming to Australia? So that was after World War II. Think they faced much discrimination and stuff, Germans?
Oh yeah, fair bit of that, and the Italians of course, and very hard to get used to. In fact, my mother, she told me before they left Germany, she says, I'll go to Australia and cook meals for the stockmen. They didn't even understand about Australian cities. She just thought it was all farmers, and I'll cook meals for the farmers and the stockmen. It wasn't like that, but it was pretty hard hard for them.
So you grew up around Port Kembla. What was
Yeah.
your mum and dad doing there?
My mother worked in the steelworks, BHP. My father, he went from BHP to the copper smelter and several industries there, mainly copper smelter. That's the last place he worked at. And that's basically what they did. I mean, what mother did a lot of house cleaning. That was another job she did. They never had a car for a long time, and they used buses and that sort of thing. Even though other friends had cars, they wanted to pay the house off. There probably were house loans, but you couldn't get them. So they had to, or they did say paying off, so they must have got a loan, but they had to pay it off quickly because it's hard.
Do you remember, were their friends mostly migrant type families as well?
Yeah. They would have had Australian friends, but mainly because they had formed, there was a German club not that far away, and so all the migrants were in their own little groups because of the feeling more secure, I suppose.
So a lot of your mates were all going surfing, but you decided that you saw some of the rockers in the area and that you might get into motorbikes.
Yeah, that's right.
What are the rockers? Are they like the rockabillys?
I don't know. Did I say something?
You must have. I must have read it somewhere.
Oh, don't remember.
What inspired you to get into motorbikes?
I was just, after school, getting an apprenticeship and then wanting transport. And even in high school, all the young lads looked at bikes, and they're only little 80cc moped type things, but we all got excited about that. We're looking around for work. It could have went to BHP. They had big apprenticeship places, but I decided to go into the mines. I don't know why. And then I thought, well, I need transport. I got someone to take me, one of the workers, but that was temporary because he had to go out of his way to pick me up as apprentice. So I got this little 80cc bike and then graduated to a 250 and then had a major accident, just being silly young lad. Really.
I thought I read somewhere that you had a crash on a weekly basis as a young man with no helmets. Is that true?
Oh, in those days you didn't have helmets, and I was just very gung-ho, always pushing the limits, and crash the motorbike, get up and go again. Just lucky not running into cars, because other friends had accidents, and if you slide across the road and happens to be a car just there at that time. So in those days, there was a lot of friends died, mainly because we didn't have helmets, because once the helmets came in, it all improved heaps.
So
people still died though.
In 1966 in September you had a really bad accident?
Yeah, that was going way too fast in the built-up area, and happened outside the new Port Kembla hospital, and the ambulance couldn't find me because couldn't understand where I was at the time, but really silly, and broken femur, crashed into the lady was driving a Viva, but it was my fault. I was just going too fast, and she was going from a right-hand road into the hospital car park, and I just zoomed over the hill and bang, just being silly. And that was really nasty, because it used up, the employer, the mine, could have sacked me and said it was too much trouble, but they kept me apprenticeship, and I lost 2 years of apprenticeship and 12 months at home and 3 operations to get the leg right. A femur can be really bad.
And 2 things from here, Gunter. You found a woman who liked riding motorbikes too.
Oh yeah, that was just pen friends. I don't know what. I think it was the Union newspaper, and she put an ad in, or I think she put an ad in, and we just had mutual interest and that sort of thing. And then that sort of went quiet, and just went about my normal business, the apprenticeship and riding bikes and that. And then her sister got on to her and says, why don't you contact him again? And she did, and she was in Alice Springs nursing. She became a nurse, an EN, not an RN, and she was in Alice Springs. And just somehow we got together, and I went down to, it was Berry in South Australia. That was, 24-hour drive, I think, whatever it was.
Riding the motorbike?
Oh no, that was in my parents' car, just to go and say hello. and brought her home to our place and just to get to know each other. And then we both planned at the end of my apprenticeship to go around Australia. So she chucked a job in, I chucked my job in, and I bought a Holden ute and we went around Australia.
Right.
And then got to Cairns, and I worked around Australia a bit and got to Cairns and run out of money and asked my parents for money. But then we bought a really cheap rundown house, which my parents paid for $10,000 in 75 or 73. And I thought, something was easier by being married. I don't know what it was, because we didn't get a loan. Anyway, so I was working at the sugar mill, my wife was working at a nursing home near Cairns, and we took a sickie, went into the courthouse and got married.
You old romantic, you, Gunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it might be easier if we get married, get this loan or whatever it was.
And then went back to work the next day. So it was just a day off.
And you're still
Sounds
married?
A bit, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's a bit
How many years
weird.
ago was that?
73.
73, so a fair few years ago. And she likes riding bikes?
Yeah, and she had her own bike, and we both toured on the bikes and the kids on the back.
Oh, wow.
Went to some bike rallies and kids on the back. I put a seatbelt around both of us, and my daughter often used to just fall asleep and you can feel the seatbelt.
Yeah.
But then eventually, different circumstances, I could still ride a bike to work, but, my wife did ride. We went back to Port Kembla after living in Cairns. Pretty complicated. We were all over the place. And she got a bike. And that's when we took the kids and went on rallies. And eventually I was the only one that had the bike, and she hasn't been riding for a long time. But so I still ride now.
Yeah. Well, this is the reason why I wanted to ask you, because you say that you still ride your bike to jobs, and you can only take the really basic catching equipment. So what happens if you need a ladder or something like that? Yeah,
that's the problem. If people ring me, sometimes if I'm close to home, I can say, well, I can go back and get my car. But quite often I'm not. One day I had 4 call-outs and I didn't have time to go home and get the car. But I didn't need a ladder, I didn't need extra tools. I've got a few hand tools on the bike, but very limited. And most times you don't need stuff, or you can ask the homeowner, have you got a ladder? And also if I've got a ladder in the car, it's also handy if the homeowner can put their ladder up to get on a roof, or a snake in the roof cavity. But sometimes they haven't got a ladder, but it's never been a problem because they've always either had a ladder when I've been on the bike or whatever. So you're very limited.
What constitutes your basic? It's one of those, that poker thing that you use with the hook on the end of it.
Yeah, the hooks they're not really great for catching snakes, because they always laugh when you see a video and someone chasing a snake and trying to hook it. The snake's not going to sit on the hook. But there are some really skillful blokes that can have the net bag handy, and they'll hook the snake and flick it into the bag really well. But most can't do that. They just try to hook it. So I don't. I just use a pinner with a soft foam end.
What's a pinner?
So it's a stick like a broom handle, and it's got a stick with a bit of foam on the end, and it's a triangular shape. So you chase that, and if it's too fast, I like to pin it, and that'll stop the snake, and then I grab the tail and then bag it. I learnt that off when I was first asked to actually do snake catching in Kingaroy. I'd never done it before. I thought, I better learn how to do this. So I watched a barefoot bushman, Rob Breddle. I watched him do it, so I learnt from him. And he had the ridiculous pinner. He had a broom with rags wrapped around it, and he chased the snakes with this broom with all these rags wrapped around and pin it that way. And I thought, well, I can do better than that. But the broom's really wide, so it's got plenty of room, and then catch them that way. But a lot of the time you don't need to have the pinner handy, but most times you can just grab the tail end, or it might be stopped somewhere and not wriggling, so you can usually find the tail and grab it and then bag it.
So you just sort of lift it up high, so that it's not coming in at you.
Yeah. But they do whip around like a whip. They'll come up, and I've had them hit me hand with their mouth shut, and and you've got to wriggle them to try and make them go down so they don't come up, and that's mainly the browns. They're shocking, and it's mainly also when they're 4 foot, 5 foot at the most, they're the most wriggly. They come up and all over the place, and when they get bigger, they're sort of heavier and they slightly more placid. They don't do it as bad, and they're easier to bag then. But it varies too from one to the other. And the black snakes, they're a bit more placid. They don't whip up as much, but they can still. Yeah.
You're on Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and we're talking to Gunter Glaser, who is the snake catcher of the Darling Downs. But you have actually been bitten a couple of times, haven't you?
Yeah, probably because I'm not 100% safe. I try to be, and I'm aware of it, but it also means you've got a really lively snake, you know, that sort of thing. So for black snakes, I've been hospital 3 times for blacks and twice for a brown. Some snake catchers that are really, really careful have never been bitten, but then some experts, you know, really experienced ones say you just haven't had a really lively snake.
Yeah, right.
Because the first brown was in Oki, and it was only 4 foot long, and I had the bag and the snake by the tail in the other one, and it just whipped up and hit the hand that had the hold of the bag. Just a quick bite, and I thought, oh, quick bite, maybe dry bite, but you still got the homeowner to put the pressure bandage on, because you don't know if it's a dry bite or not. It's only a fluke if it is. And then waited for the ambulance and did all the stuff, and again I knew I was bitten because there was blood and I saw it come up, but there was no pain from the actual bite. And then ambulance, the usual thing, and then you've got to wait however long it takes, usually 4 hours for the blood test to come back, and if it's a positive that your blood's got venom in it, then they give you the antivenom, but they leave the pressure bandage on till then, and then they slowly take the bandage off, waiting for symptoms. As soon as you get symptoms, then the antivenom goes in.
It's for all snake bites, is it?
Yeah, they wait till the blood test comes back.
So we're not doing any of the trying to suck out the venom or washing off the venom or any of that anymore, is that right?
It's best not to wash it, because
Why
they
is
can take a sample off your skin as well.
Yeah.
Besides the blood test, they can also take a sample off your skin to sort of see what might have bit you, but they don't give you anti-venom till they can identify the snake.
Right.
Yeah,
so
even
you
if
know
you
with
tell
that
them.
one that bit you,
Yeah.
did that snake get away there?
No, that's the other thing I do. Even though I was bitten, I don't just drop the snake and put the bandage on. I bag the snake first, then put the bandage on, so that wasted time too. You know, gave the venom more time to go through, but
Circulate around.
But-
so we skipped this really critical part of your story, which is how you got interested in, you said someone said, would you do it?
yeah,
In Kingaroy. How
so
did that happen?
Well, I knew a bloke that he was a farmer up there, young fella, but he joined the national parks, and I never knew snake catchers existed in those days. I'm trying to think, 2000 or something. There probably was plenty around, and he said, oh, the local snake catchers left the area, would you do it? And me being me, people ask me to do things, oh yeah, should be right. And then I said, oh, I've never done this before. And then
Had you never caught a snake?
pythons, but I left the venomous snakes alone, except for the mildly venomous ones in those days. And again, I never had pets, and as a child I had pythons and lizards, you know, as pets in an outside enclosure, but never had any experience with dangerous snakes. So I had to learn quickly, and then after a few years I decided to do a proper course, and I had to go to Rockhampton to do the course, and that was expensive. And nowadays you've got to do a course to get a permit, and you've got to have first aid ticket. In those days you didn't need anything.
Yeah.
They just signed you up.
Yeah, you just put your shingle out as the snake catcher. Well, I wanted to ask you too, so what regulations, like you have to work within some environment protection order or something, don't you? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, you do a course, get your first aid certificate. You've got to have all that, and then you apply for the permit snake catching permit for reptiles that covers all reptiles, and that's basically it. It's more complicated now than it was when I did it. When I did it, you could just ring them up and they give you a permit. It was just so simple, but it's not now.
What I found really interesting is you said, I think on one of your posts, that often you get to where the call out is and the snake's missing because people haven't watched it and kept an eye on it. So, yeah, that's quite common, is it?
Yeah, people say, oh, it happens so often. And all snake catchers find it. So they'll call you and say, I've got an eye on it, and I'm watching it. You get there and there's no one around. They're inside having a cuppa. And I said, where's the snake? You're supposed to be watching it. Oh, it's over there under the bush. Oh, yeah, right. Of course it is. Of course it's not. It's gone. Right. And they don't realise.
So
some people are good.
Tell me how that works. Do they still have to pay a call-out fee or
Yeah,
something?
because I tell them on the phone, it's probably once a year. It used to be more than that a while back, but once a year there's someone that just doesn't pay. You get there and they say, oh, I'll do it on payday, etc., and it doesn't happen. And you get that. And so that's a bit of you can't do anything about it, really. You'd like to, but it's too complicated trying. So it's only those once a year or so, but I've probably got a list of about 100 over the years that just haven't paid, and you keep calling them or sending them messages, and then they just ignore you in the end. And so it's just one of those things. So I always tell them on the phone, the call out fee, that's got to stand whether the snake's caught or not, and then $20 relocation fee. That's fairly recent. In the past, we all used to just have one fee, covers a lot, but to make up for costs, have a call out fee, a basic fee, so that at least they're saving a little bit of money if I don't catch it. But I do a search. Some of us do a search. There's some catchers that don't do a search. They'll just come, and if they don't see the snake, they just ask for the money.
Snake,
So that's frustrating. So we both do the same. Try to keep the fees as low as possible. We've just added a little bit for the fuel cost now, and we're not keen on it, but you got to.
And where do you release them? Is it down the bottom of the range?
So if it's harmless, it can be anywhere along the range, still away from people. And dangerous snakes, it's usually, again, away from people. It can be west of Toowoomba, because still got to think of the snake. They look at the type of environment, and again, away from people. The Department of Environment they have a bit of a rough guide, saying no more than 5 kilometres. But if I catch an eastern brown in the middle of Toowoomba, 5 kilometres is still Toowoomba. It's still amongst houses. The real keen snake catchers, they'll still let it go fairly close to where they caught it, because that's what the regulations say. But I prefer to still have it away so that it's not a danger to people. You still got to think along those lines.
I just can't imagine the sort of the anxiety and tension when you get to someone's place and someone's really freaked out about there being a snake there. Is that kind of hard to handle?
Oh, you just got to calm them down and talk to them, and they usually feel a bit better after I've been there. And also on the phone, I tell them if it's outside in the garden, it'll highly likely be gone, just to save them the call-out fee. And but 9 out of 10 times, they still want me to come and do a search, and they feel better after I've done a search. Sometimes, depending on the garden and the hiding places, sometimes I can say it's definitely gone, but most times I can say, well, I've done a search, I haven't found it, it could be gone, but it could still hide somewhere because I could have missed it. So it does help having done a search, because I walk through the garden, if it was still there, it should come out. And it's one of those things, it's really hard. You don't know if you're going to get it or not. And then I have had times when I've done that search and I get home and the next day the people say, oh, the snake appeared again. I thought,
so do you go back and go and get it?
If it's a long distance, I just give them 10 or 15 minutes after I leave. If you call me back, I'll come back and do a no charge call back. But if it's too far away, it costs too much. And if it's local, up to 10 or 15 minutes from home, I do it for the rest of the day. I'll come back
Oh, wow.
and do a call back.
Wow.
And occasionally I'll get called back, but most times if I do, it's usually gone again.
Oh, God, that's a frustrating
Yeah.
profession. Tell me about snakes following fence lines.
And they also have a track, a bit like an ant's track. People have often seen a snake come into their yard, exactly the same spot as a few months ago. It might not even be the same snake, but they follow walls and fences because they feel secure up against the wall and the fence. And on fences, often the grass is a little bit longer along the fence, plus fences could have gaps in them. If they get startled or frightened of something, they quickly duck through a hole in the fence and go to the neighbour's place. And also, when they come into your yard, they have a bit of a look first. And if there's no movement and they feel safe, they'll sometimes go towards the house. They're always looking for a feed. And then they hit the house wall and they'll go around the perimeter of the house and then head for the fence again and keep going from neighbour to neighbour. And then somebody leaves the door open. This is how they get in the house.
Do they come through cat flaps?
They could. It depends, because ours blows in the wind too. So they could, most times they just travel with the head down and just stay down. But occasionally they'll look up and climb up into things, into barbecues, and they often go upstairs to go on verandas, but they can go through a pet door. Some pet doors have a good magnet, the stiff pet doors, but a lot of them blow in the wind. And
I tell you, I haven't put my working boots on as gingerly since I've watched your videos. So they like getting in boots, do they?
Oh, they can. People leave boots outside and they'll often go in them to hide. I've only found a couple in boots and shoes, but the other thing that irks me is I go to schools and kids with their bags, they've got shelves to put their bags on, and they leave them all over the ground open. So I go there to look for a snake. It's usually in the garden, and I see all these bags open on the ground. I thought, oh heck, I'm not going to check all those bags. So that kid could come along, shut the bag, take the snake home if there's one in there. That can happen, but they don't think.
No, I don't. I wouldn't have thought about that, something like that either.
Yeah,
No, definitely not.
Same with the doors open. So they react to movement. You can stand at the door talking to someone at your door and you don't look down, you're just talking to the person, and the snake can come along the wall, following the wall, and it comes in because it's just following the wall into the house. And you might look down and see it happen, and people have. They've looked down, oh heck, a snake just came in my house, I had the door open. Or you haven't seen it come in, and you shut the door and you've shut it in, it can't get out. So there's the scenarios.
I don't like the sound of any of those.
No.
What about climate change? What's sort of changing for you and catching snakes, do you reckon?
I think it does upset all animals, because in winter now, by the end of May, there should be no more movement. Maybe even before May, depends on how cool it is. But last winter we had some quite warm days in winter, and this silly carpet python, it was a warm day and it ate a meal. And then if it cools down, the meal could go rotten in its gut. They need the warmth to digest the meal. So the silly buggers, I happened to catch this one, so I kept it again at my place in an enclosure till it digested the meal, and then relocated it. So it was really, right down. But if I didn't, it highly likely it could have gone rotten in its gut.
Right, and that will kill it, will it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they need the warmth to digest the meal, and normally they wouldn't if it stayed cool all winter, but they get confused. And so that's what I mainly get in the 3 or 4 months in winter, because it can be 4 months into August. It's mainly carpet pythons, 1 or 2 a month, and it's usually a carpet python in someone's shed or under the workbench or in a box of blankets, and you go out to the shed, want blankets for winter or something, and there's someone already there, and the carpet's just having a rest.
And do most people just, because we don't know one snake from the other, they just freak out, whereas if you knew that it was a carpet python, you'd just leave it? Or
Yes, a lot of people do leave them, but a lot of people also don't want any reptile around, including blue-tongued lizards. Some people don't want anything like that around. And then also we offer the send me a photo and I'll ID it for you. You know, because sometimes they can send a photo of a blue-tongued lizard. They can't see the head, or they have seen the head and it's still confusing. They haven't seen the legs. But with a photo, I can tell straight away by the pattern on it, or a carpet python, the pattern straight away. And then I can tell them what it is, and then they can still decide whether they want it removed or not.
Is there any harm in leaving, pythons and stuff around?
It is better to leave all of them. Even
Is
the
it?
dangerous one,
Oh,
it's
really?
better for the snake because they were born in the vicinity. So their home territory is a maximum of a kilometre radius, and it can be a lot smaller than that. And they were born in that territory, and as soon as they're born, they're learning where all the hiding places are, where the food is, and the little ones are really scared of getting eaten by other snakes. So they're all just moving around and go from house to house and do their thing. And sometimes you get a really big, say, eastern brown that could be 10 or 15 years old, and it's lived there all its life and hasn't killed anybody, and people discover it, and of course that's when they panic. And if I catch it and take it away, the poor bugger's got to get used to a new environment, and they can stress out and die by releasing it in a new environment.
Do you love snakes, Gunter?
Oh yeah.
Do you? Yeah.
Oh, all animals actually. Even cane toads are good, but they're not good for the environment, so you got to euthanize them. But they make good pets.
You put them in the freezer. Make good pets.
Oh, they're fantastic things, but you
don't
can't
cuddle up to a
you
cane
can't.
toad though.
Oh,
do
you
No.
can, and they talk to you. If you stroke them, they make their funny little noise, but you can't. Kids used to keep them as pets at home years ago, and they'll eat anything, dog food, and that's what they often do in people's yards. They come up and someone's left some dog food out and they'll just gobble that up. They do anything.
Do we have cane toads here on the Darling Downs?
Yeah,
We do.
just recently I had quite a big one, and I had it really close, and because you can handle them, the poison won't come out of the glands unless you're really rough with them, and then that white poison will come out if you hit them with something. But you can't keep them. You got to euthanize them because they are a pest.
Yeah, right. Well, Gunter, I have run out of time. That has been absolutely fascinating. Now, I always ask the same two questions at the end of an interview. Do you have a favourite royal?
No, I'm not into royals.
Oh, come on.
At the most, the current ones like Charles and his son William,
Okay.
they're brilliant people, what they're doing. You know, the modern royals is fine, but years ago it was all bad stuff. So I'm not really a fan of royals generally, but the current, especially the British ones, because the stuff they're doing for the environment and animals and stuff is great, but then they've never been heroes of mine.
Well, Charles is notoriously a bit of a tree hugger, isn't he?
Yeah, they've all been really good, and even their wives have all been great people. Yeah, it's mainly you go back to the ancient times when they were horrible.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not really fans of the royals, of how they got there and all that, but the current ones are brilliant people.
Fair enough. That's great. And what about dancing? You inclined to
No, well,
have
as
a
a
boogie?
as a teenager maybe, but so I just wrote down the old rock and roll, before the Beatles came and ruined it. But yeah, because the music after the Beatles was totally different type of rock and roll. They're still fine. They brought out some good stuff. So I often say, they ruined rock and roll. They didn't really. But
Is there a favourite song that you had when you're, rock and roll?
Probably not really, because there's just so many, because I still have me iPod thing when I have a rest in the shed, and all the real old rock and roll from the 50s and 60s mainly.
Yeah. So when you have a rest in the shed, what do you have a rest on?
I've got a fold-out deck chair sort of thing where I just go and play me music, and being older than that, I've got to have more rests nowadays. I get crooked back from doing things.
From catching snakes?
Even that. So if you just go there and catch the snake and just have a quick look around, because sometimes they ask for another look around, and then go, it's fine. But if you've got to do a search, that can take, on average, half an hour. Because like the bloke, again, I refer to, Colin, we both do a proper search. We like to have it over and done within half an hour, There's a lot of bending in that, and so it leaves a bit of a crook back.
Yeah, crook back, that's
Yeah.
right. How you know whether the animal's sick, you just look at it. If it's crook, it's crook.
Yeah.
Just tell the listeners actually where they can find you. If they've got a snake, what do? Do they go online, try and find you? Or
Phone's always the best. Sometimes I get messengers, that Facebook messenger, but it's not real reliable. Sometimes usually it's an hour after, sometimes it's the next day, so it's very unreliable. Texting is better, it's quicker, but you don't often hear that ding. It's just a quiet little ding when they text. I think they're trying to save money, but phoning is always the best. And
so you look up the Darling Down snake catcher and you'll see Gunter Glaser.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're it would be a service. If I had a snake, I know where to go. Gunter, was it keep calm and let Gunter handle it?
Yeah, that's one of my shirts.
Gunter, it's been a joy listening to your story today and just seeing your genuine just love of what you do. It's just such a pleasure. So thank you. Thank you for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk.
Okay. Good, thanks
Thank
for that.
you. That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.
You've been listening to a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast. For more podcasts or to listen to live and local Toowoomba radio, please visit 1027.com.au or listen on iHeartRadio and Community Radio Plus apps.